r/NoSleep. Posted by u/mjr_writings. If you hear a whisper over your shoulder at night, don't lie. First of all, to anyone reading this, keep a flashlight in your car, okay? You never know what may happen. Last night, I was just laying around on my bed. I was listening to music, trying to study as much as possible, and trying to stay awake as much as possible. It was raining outside, although not very hard, as it was so silent. And I frequently found myself moving my feet out of the way to see the dark space past my wide-open door. Then, at that moment, crystal clear, I could hear someone say something inches from my right shoulder. "Tell us," it said, in a faint whisper. I suddenly whipped my head around to face the voice, but only my blue cat-shaped pillow was staring back at me. I know now that this was the thing that sent me down the surreal hell. Almost immediately after that happened, something ran across my room and leaned in close to my head on my left side. I could feel the air move towards me as the shadow moved so fast, but once again, nothing was there when I looked. "Don't get too loud now," a high-pitched voice said to me, in a cocky tone. It felt like I couldn't help but scream then, but I didn't want to know what would happen if I had disobeyed whatever this thing was. "You will tell us," said another, much deeper voice said from afar. "You will tell us. And you will not lie. Yes?" I reasoned that I must have simply just gone insane instead of whatever the alternative was, but I nodded out of sheer panic. "Do you love your mother?" the high-pitched voice asked. I clenched my fist. "Yes, of course I do." The room had gotten colder. I quickly realized that this was because these things that were in my room with me were starting to move around. My laptop screen flickered on and off briefly. Then, the light above me did the same. I swear that every time the dark void came back, there were dozens of silhouettes looking towards me. I ran out of that room as fast as I could. The light finally disappeared just as I made it to the living room. The TV was still on, paused on some rom-com on Netflix my roommate was watching. I could once again feel them crowd around the border of the bluish light that shone out from behind me. To my horror, I looked down at my own shadow and saw what looked to be a pair of circles reflecting the blue light of the TV. My hand moved faster than I ever thought it could before, pulled out my phone, and turned on the flashlight to block my shadow. I knew now that light was the only thing stopping them now, but barely made this realization before hearing more voices. "Liar, liar, liar, liar." Many voices said around me, quietly but with distinct malice. Although I could still a very loud and deep voice say "For." They were right. I had lied. My mother left my dad for a younger man. My dad still hasn't recovered emotionally yet. She keeps calling me, but I know my frustration will burn her. The voices quieted down swiftly before a very high-pitched one chimed in. "What was the best day of your life?" it said. I thought for a very long time. "Last month. When Dad and I went out to eat. For the first time in what feels like forever." Nothing changed, except the continued thump of my heartbeat. "3. said the louder voice once again, only this time with a slight scoff at the end. I gasped as the TV briefly flickered behind me. "Why did your last partner break up with you?" "Because I told him he couldn't come with me to college," I said, trembling. It was like a stampede, as they all moved around me, trying to encircle me. My TV was flickering fast, leaving the vast expanse of the living room to swallow me. My phone's flashlight was flickering too, but luckily I ran far away enough to stop it from shutting down as my TV did. I ran to my kitchen and clung to my phone. Why? How was that a lie? Was that not the reason he broke up with me? How would I know if he didn't say? A chair in front of me tipped over, at the hands of the furious entities gnawing at my mind. 2. said the loud voice, echoing around the room. "When was the last time that you cried?" said a slow guttural voice, amid the chaos. Ironically, I was about to cry as well at that moment. "When I realized that I cannot love myself," I said, forcing the air out. At that moment, it was only void again. It was almost peaceful. 1. said the loud voice, although not as loud this time, and seemingly in great pain. "What is the name of the new man your mother has started a new relationship with?" said the faint whispery voice from my bedroom, from what felt like ages ago. "David," I said. I was surprised that it took me some time to remember. I must have blocked it out. I think I sat there on the kitchen floor for about 5 minutes before I realized they were all gone. I slowly got up, and carefully stepped around my house. My TV was on again. My bedroom light was on again. It all seemed like it had returned to normal. My roommates came back to our place a few hours later. I didn't tell them exactly what happened, but I did tell them that I felt like I was sick or something. And, as she did point out, I hadn't really drunk real water for a few days. But I still didn't get any sleep that night. I had to keep all the lights on, and think about it, whatever it had been. A few minutes ago, I called my mom. It felt great. She sounded a lot more excited to hear me than I thought she would be. She told me a lot about what she had gotten up to. All the while, I told her I loved her whenever I got the chance. And whenever I did, she would always pause for just a bit. She told me about her new place, what the weather has been like where she's at now, a nice trip she went on with Daryl. Not David. Daryl. After that, I told my mom I loved her again, and to not worry about me. I tried to call my dad after, but I didn't know if my phone will be able to do that. It's been flickering too much for me to even type for much longer. I hear laughing. The lamppost above me just went out. Love you, Mom. The next story of this video. Posted by you/EekPeek. The reason I resigned as an FBI special agent. From a fairly young age, I was always into true crime. The fascination wasn't the crime itself, but more so the people who were committing said crime. The older I got, obviously the more knowledgeable I became, and true crime became even more intriguing. By the time my parents were hounding me about college, I had already decided what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a police officer. While I was interested in the psychology behind perpetrators, the feeling was overpowered by wanting to stop them. I wanted to save the next person from a psychopath's spiral. Being just a bright-eyed kid, I wasn't expecting all of the grunt work and rookie-only assignments. They mainly consisted of getting coffee or pastries for the officers at the station. The only real police work I got to do for the first 6 months was pulling people over. I know that can be dangerous in itself, but I wanted more. Honestly, I always felt bad having to write a ticket for someone who was genuinely in a hurry. I didn't feel like I was helping anyone. I never encountered someone committing a felony either, but I realize now that I was just lucky that I didn't. I pushed to be the best. I never missed a day. I covered everyone's shifts. My reports were always on time. I became an excellent shot. I took lessons from well-known behavioral analysts. Just shy of my 29th birthday, I was hired as a special agent for the FBI. I had finally reached my dream job. I was more than proud of myself, and so were my parents. In the beginning, I thought I was at the highest point in my life. Nothing could ever take this away from me. I worked hard for this position, but over time, that feeling started to fade. Taking the homicide route in the FBI, I knew every folder that my superior flung on my desk was something. Well, not good. If your case ended up on my desk, that meant you were deceased and the county and state police needed our help. So, you can imagine the horror I went through for years. Countless sleepless nights trying to find some sick bastard. Over and over. Some worse than others, but they stung all the same. When you finally catch the sick person who committed such unspeakable acts, all that pain goes away. It's replaced by anger, and even after the judge sentenced them to life, sometimes it's still just not enough. I did this for over 25 years. At some point, I think I just became numb. It's almost like you have to, or you will never be able to do your job. I've worked so many cases I thought nothing could surprise me, until that one morning. I could see my superior walking towards me with an unusually thick, beige folder. He put it on my desk and asked me to review it and return to his office. The first thing I saw were the pictures. My stomach instantly became sour. It wasn't a body, but let's just say the once white and cream apartment had multiple splatters and puddles of crimson. Putting the photos aside, I start to read to the report. Name, Tabitha Gallo. Age, 18. Gender, female. Weight, 115 pounds. Height, 5'3" DOB, April 3, 1992. Missing since August 15, 2010. Tabitha was last seen leaving a party with a group of friends, when she supposedly ran off due to a conflict with one of her peers. She was said to have been seen drinking, and insisted someone was following her at the party. 5 witnesses we interviewed said they saw a man in his mid-late 40s repeatedly try to approach Tabitha. Each witness recalls Tabitha relaying awkward gestures to the man before walking away from him. 2 witnesses recall Tabitha returning to a counter where she had left her drink. No one recalls seeing the man after Tabitha returned for her beverage. August 15th was only 3 days ago at the time. Not only was it highly unusual for me to receive a missing persons case since I was part of the homicide unit, but it had only been 3 days? I flipped through witness statements, interviews from said friends, and transcripts of the 911 call her mother had placed when she never returned home. It was the back of the folder that caught my surprise. In the back of the folder were pieces of small notebook paper in plastic bags. I remember thinking it was extremely odd that they would put evidence in any folder. Attached to the plastic bags was a sticky note. "Put gloves on," it read. I opened my left cabinet and pulled out a pair of latex gloves. As I put them on, a sense of dread washed over my body. I could feel myself getting pale. Inside the plastic bags were handwritten notes. Most were dirty, but some of them had blood. They were confirmed to be Tabitha's handwriting. It said they were found along the highway at gas stations. Now, this was a very rural area, so the highway in question went through multiple states. Each one of these gas stations were also very far from one another. Each letter was in order. The day after she went missing, the first note was made. Dated for the 16th, it read, "Please help me. I'm with a man who is hurting me. I was at a party last night and was kidnapped. Please send help. Please." The note was bloodied and the writing seemed to get more frantic towards the end. I carefully slipped it back into the plastic bag. I reached for the next note and pulled it out. It was dated for the 17th. It read, "I'm lost. And I don't know where I am anymore. I don't know what to do. He keeps giving me medicine. It's making me forget things and I can't forget. I need to keep writing. Someone will find this. Someone will help me. I'm scared. I don't want to die." Vomit filled the back of my throat, but I kept it down. I slipped the note back into the plastic bag, and I pulled out the last note. I admit, even after 25 of seeing brutal attacks and deranged motives, my hands were trembling. The last note was dated for the current day, the 18th. The note was bloodier than the rest, but not torn or crumpled. It wasn't dirty either. It read, "He's going to kill me. I know he is. I want it written down what he did to me." This part of the note was very graphic, but she explains the torture she endured over the last few days. It's inhumane, it's disgusting, and I won't repeat it. I want my mother and father to know how much I love them, and I'm grateful for the time God has given me. I don't want to go like this, but my body is failing. I'm sorry I couldn't be stronger. Tears rolled down my face. A man in his mid-50s, sobbing. After I got myself back together in the bathroom, I went to see my superior. Trying to keep my normally stern composure, I entered his office. "Special Agent Keynes, please take a seat," he said calmly. I walked over to the wooden chair that sat in front of his oversized desk, and sat down. "Why are you assigning me a missing persons case? I don't deal with these sort of crimes," I asked respectfully. "You've been assigned to fly out to Ohio to continue this case. The Ohio State Police found the last letter today and called us. They say it's beyond what they can do. They need our help." His posture remained still, and he sounded almost robotic. "Sir, respectfully, if there is no body, there's no need for me or my unit to fly out there. This should be the Department of Missing Persons case," I said as kindly as I could. The real reason I didn't want to take it was because I knew why it didn't make it to the Missing Persons unit. They believe she's no longer alive based on new evidence. There is still no body, but county police found a trail of blood matching the victims. It's a lot, if you get what I'm saying. Look, you're the best homicide detective we have. If anyone can find her body, it's you. His posture had loosened, and his words started to sound like a plea. "All right," I agreed, reluctantly. "I'll pack my things." "Good. Your flight leaves in 2 hours. Call me when you land." His posture was straight and words were stern again. "Yes, sir," I replied as confidently as I could. 2 hours was not a lot of time. I packed everything I needed from my desk, headed home and grabbed clothes and hygienics, and left for the airport. It was only a 3-hour trip. During my flight, all I could think about was that girl. A middle-aged man scared to death of something I've done a million times. This was different though. I was sent out to find a body and a psychopath who's also a possible murderer. I couldn't sit still the entire time. I couldn't even look out of the window, because all I could think about was if I was flying over her while she pleads for help. When I finally landed, I was greeted by Ohio State and County Police. They led me back to their station, where we reviewed everything they had so far. It wasn't long before a state trooper and I headed out to take a drive along the highway where the notes were found. We stopped at each gas station, and I inspected every inch of each one. I stayed in a hotel close to the station. The first night I was there, I stayed up late reviewing the evidence and statements, studying the photographs and making notes. Around 4 in the morning, I started to review my notes and findings I had written down throughout the night. I was about to finally go to sleep, when I started making the connection. It was only a theory, but it was more than what the local police were doing. The following day I returned to the station. Before anyone could offer me, well, anything, I requested to go for another drive. I asked for the same officer as the previous day, and he was happy to oblige. Small talk was made as we drove along the highway. I started to ask subtle questions. Officer to agent kind of conversation. The guard he held up from yesterday was started to go down, and I could tell I was starting to gain his trust. I'm still not sure to this day how he didn't realize it was an interrogation. When we arrived back at the police station, I asked the captain if he'd like to go for a coffee, and he agreed. I could tell he knew that I had found something. When we were out of hearing range from the others, I started to explain to him that the state trooper who took me on the ride to investigate each gas station wasn't being completely honest. It turns out he wasn't on duty the night of the party. No one could account for his whereabouts the night of the 15th. The captain explained how the trooper had come in with different clothes the following day. He said he spilled wine on his uniform, and it was at the cleaners. The state trooper was taken into a formal investigation room. I had the honors of doing the interrogation. Most people ask for a lawyer right away. Some people talk excessively to try to sound more innocent. Some people don't talk at all. He didn't do any of those things. When I asked him about his whereabouts the night of the disappearance, he shrugged his shoulders and let out a sigh. I asked again, about 5 more times, but each response he gave was the same. It wasn't until 2 hours into the investigation I got a confession. After countless interrogation tactics with no incriminating answers, I finally just asked, "Did you kill Tabitha Gallo?" His glassy green eyes darted from the floor to immediate eye contact. I asked again, "Did you kill Tabitha Gallo?" This time it came at unintentionally aggressive. His mouth started to form a smile that only a monster could make. Every single one of his teeth showing. It was a wide and telling smile. Before I could ask him once more, he leaned in close to my face. Never breaking eye contact, he leaned in even closer and whispered, "And I do it again." We never found her body, and he still won't give up any information on where she is. Knowing he's rotting away in prison doesn't help either. It still hurts. After that, I decided to leave the FBI and leave the police business behind me. How could I save anyone, if the real monsters are the same people who claim to save and protect you?